Well, the Victorian government has introduced the WorkCover scheme modernisation bill designed to ensure the program can continue to support those who get injured when on the job. Earlier, I spoke with Batt, the Secretary of the Victorian branch of the Community and Public Sector Union. Thanks very much for your time. Can you give us a sense of what the union thinks about this bill? Is it what you expected after the extensive consultations and essentially the government saying that the WorkCover scheme in Victoria is broke?
Simon, I'd have to say that there was no extensive consultation. The first time any of us saw the bill was when it was second read earlier this week. In reviewing the legislation, it's one of the most draconian pieces of legislation we've seen in the workers' compensation space for a very long time.
What's the main concern about it? Is it around the mental injury amendments, which is very much when you look at this bill, it's the first part of it. It's top of the list, but there are a few other nasties in there?
There are a number of nasties in there. Quickly, they've removed the right to arbitration for matters arising around the non-acceptance of a claim. So that process has now been closed off, forcing people into the court system. Very draconian, very litigious. We've also seen that the government's going to cut off the right to have access to benefits after 130 weeks. That is also significant. Many cases of particularly physical, which is also incorporated in this, injuries take longer than 130 weeks to manifest themselves. And so the ability to have entitlements to compensation post an accident, post an injury is being denied. But importantly for the scheme, it's the denial of the rights for people to make claims for mental health injuries. Mental health injuries arising from stress, burnout and other associated issues regarding the workplaces will be significantly restricted under this legislation.
And what proportion of claims currently involve a mental health claim?
A large proportion of them do, Simon, especially we've seen a tick up of this over the COVID period where people were exposed unusually to quite excessive amounts of death. The restrictions associated with working in those types of environments has resulted in a tick up of claims. But we've also got claims arising from vicarious trauma, from exposure to cumulative trauma, not just traumatic events. The legislation is narrowing down the ability to claim solely to the exposure to a traumatic event that is diagnosed by a practitioner as a cognitive or psychological dysfunction, so similar to PTSD. If you are stressed arising from seeing constant reports of child abuse and child neglect, but you are not exposed to one trauma, your ability to claim has been closed off.
There have been reports, The Guardian Australia has been reporting that crossbenchers are doubtful about their support on this bill. They're concerned too about mental health injuries, mental health claims, and it follows a bill yesterday being delayed for 2 weeks that relates to housing and taxation. What do you make of where the crossbenchers are thinking at the moment on this? Could you potentially try and lobby them, at least from the union's point of view, on your view?
I have not yet spoken to any of the crossbenchers. However, we are looking to have some dialogue. We believe that people need to understand the depth of these changes. This is not a superficial change. This is not the Orwellian, as the title would suggest, that it's about modernising this Act. This is about denying rights to people who are injured at work arising from exposure to constant trauma, to stress and to burnout. Unless you are diagnosed by a psychiatrist with a particular cognitive dysfunction, you will not be eligible to claim compensation.
Just quickly, there's a lot happening in the workplace space in Victorian public sector. We've seen this afternoon the Police Association come out in Victoria angry about EBA talks stalling and hours being cut at police stations. There's a number of agreements on the table at the moment, including with the firefighters. No doubt you're bargaining with the government at the moment. How do you find the attitude of the government when it comes to negotiating with its vital workers that deliver essential services across the state?
Well, at the moment, Simon, we're in the early days for the public service agreement, which covers roughly about 45 separate agencies in the public service. Those discussions are starting. The key for us in terms of negotiations is whether the government is going to hold hard and fast to a wages policy that, when you look at it, does not add up in the context of current cost of living pressures on ordinary Victorians.
Yeah, it seems inflation's just a little bit more than 2%. Karen Batt, really appreciate your time here on Afternoon Agenda. Thanks so much.